For most of us, Tisha B'Av has been a day that we struggle mightily to relate to. Something for most of us that is very difficult. It's hard. How could we be forced to cry? Something that we don't know deeply about. Something that we've learned about, something that we're supposed to lament for. But really, it's something that's so very difficult for us to do. Being that we have been in exile and Golus for thousands of years, what is it that we are supposed to do on Tisha B'Av? Restrict, refrain, hold back the basic pleasures of life. We sit on the floor, we lament, we cry, we mourn. It's a day that for most of us, for perhaps as long as we can remember, is a day that has been very, very difficult to relate to. With the wisdom of Chazal, the wisdom of our sages, they knew this insofar as that beginning on Shiva B'Tammuz, culminating on Tisha B'Av, it's an increase, intensifying of the morning, revving up the engines of sorts. Whereas, Rahman al-Islam, when a person is a mourner, an ovel for a relative, the period of being an onain, the period of the kvura, the period of the shiva, the period of the shloshim, the yud beis chodesh, it's the opposite. The pain is acute, it's painful, we feel it. We don't have to be cajoled. We know exactly what it is that we feel, but since we're thousands of years in Golus and exile, we need to be moved, we need to be stirred, we have to change things up, we have to gradually intensify. Beginning of the 3 weeks, Shiva B'Tammuz, culminating tonight, this ominous day, on the 9th of Av. Whereby, though it has been so difficult, perhaps throughout all of our lives, to truly, truly relate to Tisha B'Av, I think it's safe and fair to say that not so this year. This year, Tisha B'Av is different for every single one of us. It's different for every single Jew in Artseinu HaKadosha in Israel. It's different for every single Jew around the world. Because this year, Tisha B'Av began on October the 7th, 2023, on what was supposed to be Simchas Torah, a real Simchas Torah that was robbed from every one of us. For 310 days, we have been mourning. We have been observing Tisha B'Av. For 310 days, since October the 7th, there are still hostages who are held in terror tunnels, who have yet to be reunited with their families, their mothers and fathers, their grandparents, their brothers and sisters, some with their children, some with their grandchildren. 310 days of relatable Tisha B'Av. This Tisha B'Av, it is different. Tonight, they're sitting on the floor, a removal of our shoes, restrictions. It has just a little bit of a different meaning for us. We take off our shoes and we sit on the ground. We are mourners sitting in a Shiva house, each and every one of us deeply affected. We sit Shiva for the broken world that we live in, the broken world, the chaos that's raging all around us. We sit Shiva and we mourn for a world where the only Jewish democratic state is targeted by the vicious enemies who seek its annihilation. A nation that can only survive by fighting for its life. The miracle of Israel, fighting for its life every second of every day, now more meaningfully than ever before. Tonight we are sitting Shiva, we are mourning for a world in which it is possible for anti-Semitism to surge in response to the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. Unimaginable and unthinkable. Since the Holocaust, celebrating in the streets, not just in Europe, but here in the United States of America, the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. We sit Shiva and we mourn for a world filled with hatred, a world that is filled with vitriol and violence, with deception, with confusion. We mourn that the closing ceremonies at the 2024 Paris Olympic Games last night, when the delegation from Palestine walks into the arena to cheering, to celebrating, standing ovation, captivated by their presence. We sit Shiva when there's a store, a town center mall just up the block from where we are all sitting tonight, the store called Lush Cosmetics in our mall posted a sign stating that 100% of the proceeds of the sales from the soap sales will go to help with professional mental health care for traumatized children in Gaza and the West Bank. If you are in the Boca Mall, you may want to ask them, what about the children in Israel? Traumatized by October the 7th? What about the orphans, the widows? The owners will need more than cosmetics and soap to mask and to cleanse their anti-Semitism. We mourn and we worry and we have angst and trepidation, a world that awaits Iran's supposed, anticipated, predicted retaliation for Israel's decimating and destroying the axis of evil, terror, heinous, awful, atrocious humans, subhumans who celebrate death and martyrdom, destruction, death of our people. We wait. Will it happen on Tisha B'Av? Iran's retaliation. On Tisha B'Av, tonight we sit Shiva and we mourn the destruction of Bayis Rishon in the year 580 BCE by Sheni in the year 70 CE. The suffering of our people in Eretz Yisrael and around the world. There is no place that is free from this. And for the state of the world, how in the world could it possibly have come to be? Never in our wildest dreams. I'm shaken by the thought and by the sight. The morning of October the 7th, when I saw a Buchenwald survivor, my beloved, your beloved, Mayor Rappaport, who I'm sure is watching on Zoom, with Ruthie, they should be well. The pain in his face, the hurt was exuding from his essence, from his soul, a survivor from Buchenwald, the inferno of the Holocaust. In Artsenu HaKadosha, in Israel, when we stood in Kfar Aza, we saw obliterated homes, destructive Holocaust in our homeland, the state of the world, and for our people, what has happened? The message of the Almighty to us, could it be clearer? All the pain of Jewish history is because we live in a broken world, one where the presence of the Almighty is obscured and where many have grown distant from him. There's a richuk. We're far from the Ribono Shalom. Tonight, we are mourners. We mourn the many tragedies that befell our Jewish people through the generations, the millennia, on this ominous day. The Gzera, the decree requiring our ancestors to wander in the Midbar for 40 years, before Knesset Haaretz, before entering into the land because of the Chet HaMeraglim, the sin of the spies. Tonight we sit Shiva, we mourn the expulsion of the Jews from England in 1290, expulsion of the Jews from Spain in 1492, the many Arab massacres, in particular, the Arab massacre, the Jews in Hebron in 1929. We're mindful of the Asarugei Malchus, for which we will lament tomorrow, like we do on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, killed during the 2nd century. the Crusade pogroms, which devastated German Jewry at the end of the 11th century, the burning of the holy Jewish books in the 13th century in France. Tonight we mourn the 6 million Jews who perished, who died, who lost, were murdered, slaughtered, maimed. 6 million Jews who perished on Kiddush Hashem in the Shoah, in the Holocaust. And tonight, sadly, in the caricature, in the story, in the timeline of our mourning, of our suffering, our tragedy, we mourn the events that took place on October the 7th. We mourn the hatred, Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran. In the streets, in their abodes, university campuses, celebrate with color and chant, with rhyme, hypocrisy and hatred, vitriol and worse. Death to the Jews. Zion will lay in ruins. The Jewish people will never have their temple again. My beloved community, this Tisha B'Av is not the same as Tisha B'Avs before. It dare not, be not, shall not be the same Tisha B'Av like the Tisha B'Av before. The aching and the pain, the yearning, the need for the Beis Hamikdash, the need to rebuild Yerushalayim, the need, Hashchina, the need for dveikus and connection to the Ribono Shel Olam, the need to be the best versions of ourselves and our connection to the Almighty and the connection ben adam l'makom, ben adam l'chavero, to each other. The need, the pain, the desperation has perhaps never been felt as much as it is felt now. I'm reminded of what a picture of our desperation looks like from a period of time not too long ago, when there was a particular story that happened during COVID that struck me very deeply then, and I am very mindful of it tonight here as well. Sets the stage for Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah's lamentation, and the kinos and the eicha that we are about to feel further subdued and recite and chant. While everything, including all of the shuls in our area, and no doubt where you lived and where you were closed, there was a certain very special Rabbi in one of our schools that was seen on a particular mid-morning riding his bike. He was riding his bike strapped over his shoulder. He was carrying one of those collapsible beach chairs dangling over his arm, over his shoulder. This particular peculiar scene gave a friend of his who was passing by in his car reason to stop to see if everything was okay, to inquire what in the world was happening. Where exactly was it that he was going? With tears in his eyes streaming down his cheek, and rather matter-of-factly, he told his friend that actually he wasn't going anywhere, but rather had just come from davening at the shul. His friend was perplexed and shocked at his answer. Davening at the shul? How could that possibly be that you are davening at the shul? Aren't all the shuls closed? Isn't everything closed? He nodded in the affirmative and said, yes, indeed, the doors of the shul are painfully locked, and that the shuls are terrifyingly closed. But he told his friend, I simply couldn't hold myself back from coming to this sacred spot, to my Mokum Tefillah, my Mokum Kadosh. And just like we daven with tears of heartfelt tefillah at the Kotel, the Western Wall yearning for the Beis Hamikdash to be reopened, to be rebuilt, open for services, Karbonos, the Kohanim and the Leviim and the Israelim, Hashras, Hashchina, just like we yearn for that, I too wanted and desperately needed to sit outside the shul, outside the outer walls, davening Shachris, saying my Tehillim, that our Mikdash Ma'at and ultimately our Mikdash, our Beis HaMikdash, that our beloved shuls would once again reopen. Imagine that. Right here in Boca Raton, a religious-looking man sitting on a beach chair, sitting and chuckling outside a shul, davening and crying for it to reopen, appreciating and mourning its loss, the loss of it being closed. That, my friends, is what it means to mourn the loss of the Beis Hamikdash and how painful it is to be in exile. How much and how difficult it is for us to be another minute in Golus. Do we need any more reminders of our exile? That's what it means to yearn for a deep connection to Hashem by doing anything and everything possible to be close to Him. Ein oid milvado, no matter what, no matter when, no matter how. So tonight, while tonight is a night of destruction and sadness and loss, mourning, Shiva, tonight is also the beginning, the rebuilding, rebirth. Chazal teach us that tonight on Tisha B'Av, Mashiach is born. And so tonight we redouble our efforts to do all that we can to build bridges with each other, to put our fratricide, our period, our machlokes, park it, send it to oblivion, connecting ourselves to each other, to the Beis Hamikdash, ultimately to the Ribono Shalom B'chvodo Uve'atzos, so that we can turn these days of darkness, these days of sadness, these days of mourning into days of true simcha and celebration for us all. And with that, we close with the powerful and necessary words of the Gemara Maseches Tainis. Kol hamis'abo al Yerushalayim. He, she who properly mourns, properly laments, properly cries the dirge of the kinos and the eicha. It penetrates into our soul. One who properly mourns over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash al Yerushalayim, zoiche v'roya b'simchoso, the promise that we will merit to see and to celebrate the joy of its being rebuilt, and to celebrate the rejoicing of the Beis Hamikdash, the simcha that we are aching for, the joy that we are desperate for, the Beis Hamikdash that we are craving. And so tonight we set the tone by being mourners and sitting on the floor, joining with each other, Achenu B'nai Yisrael, and in the merit of our true mourning, our feeling that sacred sadness, that doom and destruction, how we could carry on without our Beis Hamikdash, and when we will feel it proper and mourn as we should, we will merit V'sechazena einenu b'shuvcha l'tzion v'rachamim. Kein yihi ratzon v'nomar amen.